Abolishing the police. Let's do the mental exercise. Let's take it to its furthest extreme. Let's go down that slippery slope. Let's chase all the rabbits. I'm not trying to be a statist. I'm just an extreme pessimist. And usually if you prepare for the worst and nothing happens, you've lost nothing. Which police? You're talking local, state, county, federal? All of this means a lot. Let's have this discussion. Let's see where this goes. Worst case scenario all the way. Abolish the police. Okay. Local, county, highway patrol, if you were in Texas, Rangers. We're talking federal law enforcement. I'm not too happy with a lot of things police do in my state. And don't get me wrong, I do have friends and relatives who have been police. They're intelligent folks, but I have never interacted with the intelligent police officers. I always get the trainees. I always get the guys who, in your own words, what just happened? Well, that car crossed the median and ran through the stop sign and crashed into oncoming traffic from the turn lane. She was on her phone, almost killed 16 people, ran her car into the berm. If the berm wasn't there, she would have hopped over the fence and onto the Air Force Base, and that would have been federal trespassing. And then the cop goes, okay, but in your own words. Do I need to make up some new ones? But yeah, let's get real on this. I brought some of this up on Young Ripa's live stream last night. If the police were abolished, excluding military, how do you think it would end? How do you think this would go? If police were abolished, now all of a sudden you have a large number of out-of-work disgruntled former police officers, many of them trained in what would be considered paramilitary tactics. You've created your number one enemy. Antifa. Antifa and the communists and people who profess to be communists and socialists. And again, I'm not trying to be a statist here, but let's get real. If there are no law enforcement, coercion or rendition, how do you impose the will of the people? How do you impose laws? How do you enforce them? It's not going to be the Dianne Feinstein, once the gunman runs out of bullets, he'll just lay his gun down. That's just human nature. No. Human nature will be self-preservation. I may have stated already, my speaking cadence is going to be sort of Roger Stone-esque. The enemies of communists, Antifa, they're going to be vast. We already have a population of disgruntled, out of work people. We have a population that are pretty pissed off at the the Wu flu, as Gavin McInnes calls it, chickenpox. The people are disgruntled and out of work already. So I mean, riots. There you go. They're ready to act against anyone, especially that firefighter who lost his entire livelihood. He poured everything into that restaurant and it burned down. Let's think about the enemies of Antifa: veterans, gun owners, libertarians, Proud Boys, the Boog Boys, good folks that have just had enough, little elderly people in wheelchairs who Antifa decides are Nazis and they punch them. You've made not only an enemy of every older person, you've made an enemy of all of their family members. You've made an enemy of everyone who sees those videos or hears a rumor that it even happened. Your conduct says a lot for how your organization runs. Yeah, good people that are just sick of it. This is America. There's going to be crazy people. And look at all of the mass shootings of people who've run out of serotonin reuptake inhibitors. There will be trigger-happy crazies who don't like the way things are going. Doesn't matter what their political affiliation is. And again, if there are no repercussions for breaking the law, there is no way to enforce the law, and no consequences. Chances are those people, the goodly folks of the country, will band together in faction and basically just take every Antifa member out. And as it is I see it, a faceless conglomerate. They're, well, not really a conglomerate. It's a faceless movement. It'll be like the Tombstone, where Wyatt Earp goes after the Cowboys. Anybody wearing a red sash is dead. That's going to return. We're going to go back to 1890. Let's see. Corporatism. Okay, this is interesting. If there's no law enforcement, there's no way to enforce any kind of law at all. What's stopping corporations from becoming zaibatsus? If we're not enforcing anything, there's not going to be any trust busters. Corporations will take over the roles of government, and there'll be nothing to stop them. So what's stopping Target from raising a militia to retaliate against Antifa for lost revenue? I understand they're part of the alphabet crowd, but once the bottom line is affected and money comes into play, you've affected my revenue. Hey, all ties are off. We're not doing this. They'll turn on all of the people they've made allegiances to. Walmart would have the largest private army on the planet. I mean, people walking around with the smiley face or the asterisk cap, I guess that would be the factions of, I don't know about pennies, but have the Northerners and Macy's, and Southerners with Walmart or Target. West Coast would be Target. I don't know. interesting to think, go down that. Do some research on which states use which stores more often. Factions. It would fraction the country, but it would, like I said, people would band together in factions and destroy the communists. Now, I don't know if this would reinstate government as it was before police, but if you have complete lawlessness, we would have like a Mad Max scenario. Excuse me. And what's really sad is communists never reward allies. As soon as the country's taken over by communists, the overlords murder the subversives because they can't be trusted. Read the Communist Manifesto, watch Yuri Bezmenov's video. He states exactly that. Communists really should go back to making movies and free pamphlets that people throw in the trash or use to start fires. 1775 to 1789 happened the course of events happened pretty fast. There would be a lot of innocent death, especially with modern technology. Let's say all the police are disbanded. What happens to all of their equipment? What happens to all that militarization? There wouldn't be any rules of engagement. If police were completely disbanded across the board, veterans, gun owners, good old boys, hunters, just folks who know what they're doing, supply techs, there wouldn't be any rules of engagement. If there's no penalty of law and no way of stopping anything, hey, the only thing standing between Antifa, or actually the only thing standing between these gun nuts and piles of dead Antifa, as I see it, is the threat of breaking the law. Some people have no problem on their no speed bump in their conscience about murdering some folks who they disagree with. But they stop because, one, God's top 10 list says don't murder, and the repercussions of the law. You murder somebody, you go to prison. If you murder a whole bunch of people, you go to prison for a long time. But if there's no law enforcement, there's no repercussion, no one's pushing jail time, we're going to have a lot of warlords. It may be 1895, it may be 1886. Like, well, they just, hey, the posse showed up and wiped out the whole town, Chaz, because they were just sick of it. We weren't going to put up with it anymore. Not just the way people think. It's the way they behave. And behavior is what changes things. I mean, think anything you want. Your own head is your borders. But once you start throwing cement-filled milkshake cups at reporters and punching old people in the face, all bets are going to be off. And I really hate to point that light back at police officers, but of course it's conduct, and they they get theirs too. They, internal affairs. And maybe it's the good old boys club. I don't know. I'm not a cop. When I was on active duty, if you screwed up, it was on you. If you popped, there was a guy who popped for ecstasy. Hey, guess what? None of us can be your friend ever again. You are on your own. Take it like a man. Get your ninja punch and go on. Sorry, it wasn't my conduct. It was your conduct. You're going to have to get your NJP. You're going to have to get kicked out of the military, bad conduct discharge or whatever. And I saw plenty of those. There was a kid who got drunk and murdered his roommate. He's most likely in Leavenworth. I didn't hear anything else. He's probably on jail at Pendleton right now. That's the conduct of the individual, not the crowd. If Antifa were, if they ran on individual conduct, that's fine. But all of your individuals are running on the same conduct. That's the issue. Especially, when you have the entire black-clad society, beating people with spike sticks and threatening to murder Ben Shapiro because he's anti-Semitic. When Antifa shut down Milo Yiannopoulos because he was being a homophobe. You're literally wrong on all of these things. Anyway, think of this: if the police were completely abolished on every level, and there's no law enforcement, and everything's Mad Max, what do you think is going to happen to corporate entities? We would have corporatism. It would devolve into socialism, but not in the way you'd want it. All the private sectors would arm up. You would see the militarization of every corporation. All of a sudden, all the FedEx drivers are carrying, they wouldn't be AR-15s, they'd be M16s. Every, well, first of all the government entities left would arm up. So that 7 billion something rounds that were purchased up a while back, or $7 billion worth of rounds, I don't remember what it was. Hey, all of a sudden the post office is carrying. So now you don't have police carrying. You got the post office carrying. And as I understand things, some of those guys are unstable already. So by defunding the police, you then give policing powers to organizations that weren't previously police. So now the fire department has to carry. ATF and FBI are going to get way worse than they already are. They get a bad rap. I mean, Waco, come on. You see that firearms in the DMV. An armed society is a polite society. The DMV would just get worse, because, like, hey, what are you going to do? I've got a .45 pointed at your head. You're going to be nice to me in the DMV. Half government co-opted organizations like your Water and Power, they'll arm up. I mean, you see, I could see Freightliners with the zombie apocalypse scoops or shields on the sides like they had on Mythbusters. Just plowing through crowds of protesters. There wouldn't be any crowds of protesters if there's no police to enforce laws against murder. People would actively search for crowds of people on the highway with nothing else. Hey, we're out of work. There's nothing else better to do. Got a crappy '89 Datsun, whatever, whenever those were made. Some small Toyota or Nissan that's got just enough weight to murder a person. Hey, let's plow through the crowd because I got nothing better to do than collect a government check. Think about that one. And I'm not specifying skin color. I mean, hey, Antifa, stay off the highway. It's a bad idea. Cars usually go. Here's a challenge. Go stop a train. Go protest the train tracks. If there are no policing agencies, there's no detectives, no crime solving, no investigations. Murders will just happen, and oh well. Unless, hey, let's abolish the police to bring back the marshal. Let's bring back the federal marshal or the sheriff. I mean, we still have a sheriff's department, but in the Old West sense, they still have to keep raising posses to go after somebody, and then you got more lynch mobs. And then it's then you're kind of involved in a witch hunt. Oh, thank you for devolving us back to the 1600s. I only wanted to go back to the 1800s, but 1600s. Thank you very much. But again, I see people committing just heinous atrocities. We could see American warlords. We could see foreign warlords. All of a sudden, we've got imported warlords because, hey, we got open borders. What's to say, you know? Imported warlords coming in and destroying things. Well, now we'll have like an uber patriotism and citizenry banding together to stop that. So once again, good. If the only thing allowing evil to prevail is good people doing nothing, or the threat of their consequences, or the consequences of their actions to law enforcement and breaking the law. If that's removed, then there's absolutely nothing stopping good people from stopping evil. There's no excuse. By then, it would be duty. It would be common. You know, as a word of caution, Antifa, this is the last thing you want. It's the absolute last thing you want, because it's not going to be the bourgeoisie that die. It's going to be all of the proletariat, speaking in communist terms, directly to you Antifa guys. Guys, girls, Z's, whatever you are. Antifa. Bad idea. I won't even say good initiative. It's just bad judgment. Kudos for having a political affiliation. But you really should read some history books. It's a bad idea. And the people calling for this should be... We need to bring back tar and feathering. We really do. If I was tarred and feathered, I would never forget it. We need to tar and feather some politicians. Don't abolish the police. Thought of another one. How do you impose taxes? How is there any revenue? How would there be any revenue? No taxes, no revenue. The entire state would fall by. If people just did whatever they want because there's no consequence, the prison system's gone. Nobody pays taxes. The entire government, no matter which government it is, goes away. So unless, because we've seen it in history and Godwin's law always prevails, let's say we get rid of all the police. Who do you replace it with? Somebody who, I don't know, has shirts that are brown, and maybe somebody who wears black uniforms, and we'll call them the Stuhlstaffel. And well, if that doesn't work, maybe we can implement a youth program of some kind. Yeah, don't abolish the police.